I exposed my brother's betrayal, slept with my wife. My parents supported him, new family. I never expected the people closest to me would destroy everything I built. But when I uncovered the truth, I didn't just lose a wife, I lost my entire family. And then I fought back. I'm 34 years old, and I genuinely feel like I'm going insane. I don't even know why I'm writing this. Maybe I just need to scream into the void and hope someone hears me. Maybe I'm just hoping someone out there will read this and go, "Yeah, dude, you're not crazy. That's seriously messed up." Because right now, I feel like I'm drowning in a reality I can't escape from. And it didn't just start recently. No, this whole thing has been brewing for years, decades even. It all started with my family, or more specifically, the moment my brother Mason was born. Let me give you some background. I grew up in a pretty normal suburban neighborhood outside Boston. My parents weren't monsters or anything. At least they didn't start out that way. They both had decent jobs. We had a 2-story house with a backyard, and we did all the things families are supposed to do. Barbecues in the summer, vacations every year. We'd go apple picking in the fall and drive around looking at Christmas lights in winter. Picture perfect, right? For the first 8 years of my life, I was the center of their world, their only kid, their golden boy. And I loved it. I really did. My childhood was filled with memories of my dad cheering me on at soccer games, my mom helping me with school projects and birthday parties, where they actually seemed excited to celebrate me. And then Mason happened. He was born when I was 8, and everything changed. And before anyone assumes this is just typical older sibling jealousy, trust me, it's not. I've spent enough time in therapy to know the difference between feeling a little left out and being emotionally exiled from your own family. The day they brought Mason home from the hospital, it was like someone flipped a switch. Suddenly, I wasn't the son anymore. I was the extra, the afterthought, the shadow in the corner of every room. And not in some teenage nobody understands me kind of way. I mean, in a literal, constant, painful reality. They forgot about me regularly. One specific memory stands out. In 6th grade, I poured my entire soul into a science fair project, built a fully functional solar system from scratch, painted everything by hand, even coded an Arduino board to make the planets revolve around the sun. It was the first time I felt truly proud of something I created. The judges were blown away. I won a special award for the mathematical modeling I used in my design. My teacher was over the moon. My friends cheered. My parents, they weren't there. Why Mason had t-ball practice. Not a game, not a tournament. Practice. They chose a 5-year-old swinging foam bats over my biggest academic moment of the year. I brought the trophy home. It sat on the mantle for a week untouched until it mysteriously disappeared, probably stuffed in the basement somewhere. Meanwhile, the living room walls were covered with Mason's participation ribbons. I kid you not, his kindergarten macaroni art is still framed in our family kitchen. But if you asked my mom where my high school diploma is, she couldn't tell you. My dad wasn't much better. There was this one time I had a huge robotics competition, months of preparation. I was team captain. Dad swore he'd be there. The morning of the competition, Mason decided he wanted to try baseball, just tossing a ball in the backyard. Not an event, not a team tryout, just a whim. So guess who didn't show? But the real slap in the face came when we both turned 16. When Mason hit 16, my parents bought him a brand new Honda Civic. Their reasoning, we want to boost his confidence. When I turned 16, I got a lecture about work ethic and responsibility. I had to juggle 3 part-time jobs just to start saving for college. Mornings at the public library, afternoons tutoring younger kids in math, and weekends fixing laptops at a computer shop. 3 months after getting the Civic, Mason crashed it. Totaled. No one was hurt, thank God, but the car was done. They bought him another one, without a second thought. And Mason, he wasn't just spoiled, he was a nightmare. Tantrums, screaming fits, skipping class, breaking things when he didn't get his way. At first I thought maybe he had something serious going on, but the way my parents handled it, excuses. Always excuses. He's sensitive. He's going through a phase. He's expressing himself. Meanwhile, if I came home with anything less than an A+, my mom would go into passive-aggressive mode. Maybe you're spreading yourself too thin, sweetheart. Do you think you're focusing too much on robotics and not enough on core classes? If I ever dared to show frustration about anything, I was being difficult. And that made Mason upset. I bent over backward to be perfect. Straight A's, quiet, respectful. I kept thinking maybe if I was just better, they'd notice me again. Maybe if I just earned it, I could get back to being their son. But no matter how hard I tried, I was always second to a boy who didn't even try at all. I didn't realize how bad it was until I left home. College opened my eyes. I saw how other families functioned. My roommates' parents called just to say hi. My friends' families showed up for random club meetings or flew out for birthdays. Their moms sent care packages. Their dads gave job advice. I didn't get any of that. And the thing is, I started to care less. I started seeing how messed up it all was. So I stopped going home. I'd visit for Christmas and Thanksgiving if I had to, but even then, I left early when I could. My dad would lay on the guilt. Mason misses you. But Mason never called, never texted, unless he wanted money for some new venture. By my junior year, I was thriving. Straight A's. 3 papers published in academic journals. My department head nominated me for an elite exchange program 6 months in South Korea at Seoul National University working on cutting-edge AI research. I was ecstatic. Accepted immediately. Packed my bags. My parents didn't even know I'd left the country until I texted them from Seoul. Why? Because Mason had just been expelled from another community college. Too many missed classes. Again. Those 6 months in Seoul changed my life. I got to work with brilliant people. I wasn't anyone's older brother or disappointment. I was just me. I could breathe. I could exist. When the program ended, a local startup offered me a full-time job with a visa and insane salary. I didn't even hesitate. By the time I graduated, I had multiple offers from huge companies. But my parents didn't come to my graduation because Mason had a job interview at GameStop. No, I'm not kidding. And I think that's when something in me truly died. I stopped caring what they thought. I stopped hoping they'd change. Moving to Seoul full-time was the best decision I ever made. Within 3 years, I was leading product teams, building real things, earning respect. The calls I got from home rare, and always about Mason. He got fired again. He needed money. He got some girl pregnant. He lied she ended up getting a restraining order. I let them ramble. I nodded. I didn't say much. And then I met Rachel. I still remember the exact moment I met Rachel. I was at this tiny hole-in-the-wall coffee shop in Hongdae, fumbling my way through a conversation with the barista because my credit card wasn't working. I didn't speak enough Korean and I was already sweating from embarrassment. That's when Rachel stepped in, fluent Korean rolling off her tongue, like she'd lived there for a decade. She translated, smoothed everything over, and even helped me figure out the currency issue. I offered to buy her a coffee as thanks. She laughed and said only if I let her pick the dessert too. We sat at a corner table for hours that first day. I found out she was a teacher at an international school nearby. American like me, but raised in California. She had this warm energy. She listened when I talked, not just nodded. When I explained what I did, AI development robotics infrastructure, she asked questions, real ones, and she actually understood the answers. No one had ever done that before. Rachel wasn't someone looking for a man to fix her life. She had her own goals, her own sense of self. She was funny, ambitious, and self-aware. Most of all, she didn't treat me like a background character in someone else's story. She wanted a partner, not a savior. We started dating. A year in, I moved into her place. 2 years later, I proposed. We didn't want anything fancy. A small wedding, just a few close friends and her family. Her dad walked her down the aisle. Her mom cried. Her younger sister gave a hilarious, inappropriate toast. My parents didn't come. They said Mason needed them. He'd gotten into some mess with credit card fraud and they couldn't leave him alone. Honestly, I didn't even feel that angry about it. It was almost a relief. The idea of having them around on what was supposed to be the happiest day of my life felt like a dark cloud. The truth is, life without them, without their constant chaos, was good, really good. Rachel and I built a beautiful life together. We traveled around Asia on weekends, tried weird street food, wandered through temples, hiked up mountains, and spent lazy Sundays watching Korean dramas. We made friends with other expats, hosted dinner parties, and shared our dreams for the future. I finally felt like I'd escaped the gravity of my dysfunctional family. But of course, life doesn't let you get too comfortable. 3 years into our marriage, my company called me in for a meeting. They were opening a new branch office back in Boston, and they wanted me to lead it. They offered triple my current salary, full relocation benefits, and a path to executive leadership within 2 years. It was everything I'd worked toward. Rachel was excited. She called it our next adventure. She wanted to try living in the States, be closer to her sister, and maybe even start a family. I had mixed feelings. Boston meant going back to all of it. But I told myself it had been long enough. We were adults now. Maybe things would be different. Maybe the past was just that, the past. When we landed in Boston, I got a text from my mom. For one brief moment, I thought maybe she was reaching out to welcome us home, to check on us. Wrong. She just wanted to let me know that Mason was back in town too. Apparently things didn't go well in California. Shocking, I know. Turns out Mason had talked a wealthy couple into investing in his tech startup. He had promised them the next big thing, a dating app with some laughable AI gimmick. The site was never finished. The money went into leased sports cars and dinners at 5-star restaurants. When they realized they'd been conned, they threatened legal action. So he fled back to Boston. Meanwhile, Rachel and I were adjusting to life in Cambridge. We got a beautiful apartment, made new friends, and I started building the new office team. It was busy but exciting. Rachel found a teaching job at a prestigious private school, and for the first time in a while, it felt like we were exactly where we needed to be. Then Mason started showing up. At first it was just messages. Hey, heard you're back. Want to grab a drink? I ignored them. Then came the emails. Long, overly emotional messages about therapy, reflection, regret. How he knew he'd screwed up in the past, but he was working on himself. That he wanted to reconnect. Be a real brother. I didn't respond. Then one day he showed up at my office building. Told the front desk that he had lunch plans with me. Security called up to check. I told them no, send him away. He didn't leave. He waited outside for almost 3 hours, just stood there, in plain sight. I watched him from the office window, motionless like a statue. Rachel thought I was being too cold. He's trying, she said. Maybe give him a chance. I hadn't told her everything about Mason. I was embarrassed. How do you explain that your brother is basically a career scam artist with a history of manipulation, fraud, and restraining orders? So she didn't get it. Mason, being the snake that he is, found the opening. He started messaging Rachel directly, long, vulnerable texts about how much he regretted not being a better brother, how proud he was of me, how grateful he was that I'd found someone like her. Rachel was touched. She said I should hear him out, that maybe therapy really had changed him. I told her to be careful, that Mason knew how to play people, but she insisted. People can change, she said. He deserves a second chance. And then, without telling me, she invited him over for dinner. I came home after a brutal day of back-to-back meetings, and there he was, sitting on my couch like he owned the place, laughing with Rachel like they'd been best friends for years. My stomach dropped. I pulled Rachel aside and whispered, "You invited him. I just thought if you saw him, you'd see he's trying," she said, arms folded, defensive. I didn't want to start a fight, especially not with Mason in the next room. So I nodded. Let it slide. Back in the living room, Mason put on an Oscar-worthy performance. He brought wine, expensive, asked thoughtful questions about our life in Korea, told jokes, even teared up when he talked about wanting to fix our relationship. I didn't believe a word of it, but Rachel did. After that, he started dropping by more often, always when I wasn't home. Just keeping Rachel company, he'd say. She's adjusting to the move, he explained. Boston can be lonely at first. I should have seen it. The red flags were all there. But I was busy. The office launch was intense. I was putting in 12, 14-hour days building the foundation for a multi-million-dollar expansion. I didn't have time to babysit a grown man pretending to change. Then I had to go back to Seoul, just for a week. The company needed me to train my replacement and wrap up a couple of sensitive projects. Rachel told me not to worry. Mason can help me finish unpacking, she said. He knows the area. I hesitated, but I didn't want to be controlling. Rachel's a grown woman, and Mason, well, he was acting normal. Still, I couldn't shake the feeling, so I asked our neighbors to keep an eye on the place. I installed a couple more security cameras just in case. Nothing crazy, just motion sensors by the front and back doors. I didn't even tell Rachel. I didn't want to worry her. That week in Seoul was brutal. Long days, endless meetings. My phone buzzed constantly, but Rachel's messages started getting shorter, less frequent. Busy setting up the classroom. Time zones are hard. Mason's helping a lot. Mason sent me updates too. Photos of him and Rachel at museums, cafes, the park. Always with my parents tagging along. Happy family outings. It was supposed to feel reassuring, but something was off. Something I couldn't name. I just didn't realize how bad it was. Not yet. When I got back from Seoul, everything seemed normal. At first, Rachel met me at the airport smiling, wrapping her arms around me like she'd missed me every second. She told me the week had gone smoothly, that Mason had been a huge help, that my parents were thrilled to have us back in town, that she couldn't wait to show me how she'd finished decorating the apartment. I told myself to let go of the doubt. I was just tired, jet-lagged, paranoid. That night, we had dinner with my parents. It was one of the rare times when everything actually felt okay. No drama, no fights, just dinner and laughter. Rachel was glowing more relaxed than I'd seen her in months. And then she set down her fork, took a breath, and said, "I'm pregnant." Time stopped. I felt like the air had been sucked out of the room. Rachel and I had talked about kids. It wasn't a total surprise, but hearing the words, it still hit like a lightning bolt. A wave of emotions crashed into me. Shock, joy, fear, excitement. My mom gasped and immediately launched into baby name suggestions. My dad clapped me on the back, laughing like he was already imagining bouncing his grandchild on his knee. Everyone seemed ecstatic, except Mason. He didn't flinch, didn't smile or gasp or look surprised. He just looked at Rachel and then looked at me and said, "This family's getting bigger in all the best ways." Something in his voice, something in that smile made my stomach twist. I told myself I was imagining it, that it was just Mason being Mason, vague, awkward, performative. But over the next few weeks, things got weirder. Mason started showing up more, not just on weekends, not just for quick visits. He'd be there every other day, sometimes multiple times a day. Sometimes I'd come home and he'd already be in the apartment, helping Rachel clean, cooking dinner, assembling baby furniture, just there, always smiling, always acting like he belonged. He'd put his hand on Rachel's shoulder a little too long. He'd speak in plurals, "We're going to get through this. We've got the nursery almost ready. Our baby's going to be strong." One time I walked in and he was rubbing Rachel's feet on the couch. She said they were sore. I just stared. I pulled her aside, told her it was crossing boundaries. "He's just being supportive," she said, clearly annoyed. "Why do you always assume the worst?" "Because I know who he is," I snapped. "And you don't." She rolled her eyes and walked off. Another time, I got home late and found the front door unlocked. I could have sworn I locked it that morning. When I asked Rachel about it, she brushed it off. "I probably forgot after taking out the trash," she said. "Don't stress." But I was stressed. So that night, I checked the security system. I'd set it to record motion events while I was gone and back them up to the cloud. I wanted to make sure it was still working. When I logged in, I got an error message. "Storage failure. Backup disabled." My heart dropped. It shouldn't have failed. I had set it up meticulously with cloud redundancy. No one even knew how the system worked except me, and I never disabled it. I checked the local storage. Nothing. Just gaps in the recording timeline, almost like someone had manually wiped it. Then I remembered there was a backup cloud account, a second one I'd created months ago and forgotten about. I logged in, and there it was. Dozens of clips, organized, dated. Everything the primary system had failed to capture. I clicked the first clip from the week I was in Seoul. It was Mason, walking in an hour after my flight left, carrying takeout. Okay, fine, harmless. The second clip, him and Rachel on the couch, watching TV, sitting, very close. I told myself maybe the angle was misleading. The third clip, him kissing her, in our kitchen. My hand shook as I reached for the mouse. I clicked through more clips. Mason arriving every morning, leaving late at night, laughing with Rachel, cooking together, dancing in the living room, sitting side by side at the kitchen island, whispering and smiling like they were already a couple. And Rachel. She wasn't resisting. She wasn't distant. She was leaning in, laughing, touching his hand, letting him hold her. I wanted to scream, or cry, or throw something through the wall. But I just sat there, motionless, watching my life dissolve one frame at a time. I clicked through clip after clip, unable to stop. Mason putting groceries in the fridge, Rachel pouring him coffee in my mug, him playing her favorite playlist, her rubbing his back while he cooked. Then one I'll never forget, caught them standing in the hallway outside the bedroom. Mason kissed her neck. She turned, pulled him by the shirt, and led him in. They didn't come out for hours. The cameras didn't record inside the bedrooms, but I didn't need footage to know what was happening. I saved everything, backed it up. 3 copies, one on a hard drive, one on encrypted cloud storage, one on a flash drive I immediately stuck in a lockbox. I didn't sleep that night. I just sat there, cold, shaking, heart beating like a war drum in my chest. The next morning, Rachel came into the kitchen humming like nothing had happened, talking about prenatal vitamins, her next doctor's appointment, acting like we were still a happy couple in a happy home. I didn't say a word, just turned the laptop toward her and hit play. It was the clip from the kitchen. The kiss. She stopped mid-sentence, her face drained of all color. "I can explain," she whispered. "Don't," I said quietly. She started crying, blubbering. It wasn't supposed to happen. We didn't plan it. Mason he understands me. I was feeling alone and I laughed. Bitter. Hollow. Mason understands you. The guy who lies for a living, who hasn't held a job for more than 6 months since high school. She didn't respond, just kept crying. "I gave you everything I said," my voice rising. "I left my life behind. I built a future for us. I've worked nonstop to make sure you were supported, safe, happy, and you repay me with this." Tears kept streaming down her face. Then I picked up my phone and texted Mason, "Come over. Now." 10 minutes later, he walked through the door, that same smug grin on his face, probably assuming Rachel hadn't told me that I was still in the dark. He saw the footage playing on the laptop. The smirk disappeared. He froze. But Mason, always the manipulator, tried to pivot. "Bro, listen. It's not what you think." "How long?" I asked. Rachel tried to speak again, but I held up my hand. I wasn't talking to her. Mason stuttered. It just happened. We didn't plan it." "She was lonely," he added. "You're always working." "She needed someone." And then with the gall only Mason could muster, he said, "Maybe if you'd been a better husband." My entire body locked up. Every part of me wanted to knock him through the nearest wall, but I didn't move. Not yet. Instead, I turned to Rachel. "And whose baby is this?" Her face broke. She looked like she hadn't even considered that question. "It's yours," she choked out. "I swear." I stared at both of them. The man I used to call my brother. The woman I once believed I'd grow old with. And then I spoke slow, cold, deliberate. "Get out." I told them both to leave. Right then. No discussion. No pleading. Rachel, of course, tried. She grabbed my hands like she was trying to anchor herself to the last piece of floating wreckage. "Please," she cried. "We can fix this." It was a mistake. A horrible mistake. We were both lost. I yanked my hands away so fast, she nearly stumbled forward. "I wasn't lost, Rachel," I said. "You were. And you let him guide you straight into hell." Then came the guilt trip, right on cue. "Are you really going to punish our child because of this?" she asked, voice trembling at the perfect moment, eyes brimming with tears, like she'd rehearsed it. I didn't even blink. "If this baby is mine," I said, "they'll grow up with one stable, honest parent. Not two liars who pretend this never happened." Mason opened his mouth, probably about to pull one of his emotional manipulation routines. I cut him off cold. "Let me make something very clear to you. You are not my brother. Not anymore. You're nothing to me. And if that baby isn't mine, you better pack your scams and get the hell out of this city, because if I see you near me or my house again, I will make it the worst mistake of your miserable life." He froze. For the first time in our lives, I saw genuine fear in his eyes. Rachel sobbed louder, trying to get between us. "Let's just talk." "No," I said. "Both of you. Out." And then she hit me with something I didn't see coming. "You're really going to abandon your child." I turned to her so sharply she flinched. "I'm not abandoning anyone. I'm just not letting you raise them with lies. I will find out if that baby is mine. And if it is, I'll fight for full custody." She was shaking now, but I was past the point of pity. They left, and I sat in the silence of that apartment trying to process everything I had just lived through. I thought about calling my parents, not because I expected support, but because I wanted them to finally see the truth, to see what Mason had done, to see what they helped create. Big mistake. I called my mom and laid everything out, the affair, the betrayal, the footage. Her first response, "Oh, honey, you must have done something to push Rachel away." I was stunned into silence. And then she said it really said it. Mason needs a good woman in his life, and Rachel clearly makes him happy. I hung up before I screamed. Then my dad called back, tried to mediate, said I should be the bigger man, that I should support Mason and Rachel financially until they got on their feet. That's when I knew I was done. Done being the good son. Done pretending. Done with all of them. I called my lawyer that same afternoon. A brilliant woman named Sarah, specialist in high-conflict divorces, fraud, financial misconduct. I handed her everything: footage, emails, account records, password logs. She didn't even blink, just said, "We're going to bury them." And we did. First came the divorce filing, airtight, with infidelity proven on video. Rachel had no leverage. Then we froze all joint accounts. Turns out Rachel had been helping Mason access our funds, transferring small amounts, hiding purchases, taking out cash during Mason's visits. We tracked every penny, labeled it all. Rachel had no idea we'd found the backup account. She had no clue I'd documented everything. Then came the paternity test. It was scheduled for 2 weeks after the initial filing. And while we waited for that, Mason and Rachel did something so audacious, it still makes me laugh. They sued me. They actually sued me, claiming I had a familial duty to support both of them financially during the difficult transition. They wanted $5,000 a month for Mason's living expenses, another $3,000 for Rachel's pregnancy care, and get this $50,000 to fund Mason's next business venture. I almost hoped it would go to court, just so I could watch the judge laugh them out of the building. But instead of laughing, we prepared. Because Sarah, she doesn't miss. While they were busy filing their delusions, we were building a nuclear case. We contacted victims of Mason's previous scams, dozens of them, found them through forums, social media, and court records, helped them file a class action lawsuit. We even found bank statements that showed my parents helping him launder funds through joint accounts. At the hearing, Sarah brought the receipts. Every single lie, every theft, every hidden transfer, every time my parents sent Mason gift money from accounts they controlled, all while claiming they had no idea what he was doing. The judge didn't just dismiss their financial lawsuit. He ordered an investigation into my parents for aiding fraud. Their faces went pale. Their smug attitude cracked like glass. Rachel didn't fare much better. Turns out she had been using her position at the private school to help Mason target wealthy families, offering them investment opportunities. We turned over the evidence to the school board. They suspended her immediately. An ethics investigation followed, then civil suits from 3 different parents. Ois, Mason tried to run literally. Bought a one-way ticket to Florida. Too bad one of his new investors turned out to be an undercover FBI agent working a white-collar crime ring. They froze his accounts before he made it to the airport. My parents tried to raise money to help him sold their vacation property, drained their savings, and still came up short. Meanwhile, they kept pushing the narrative that I was the villain. They tried to hold a family intervention at their church, invited Rachel's family, the pastor, some elders. They told people I was mentally unstable, controlling, that I'd installed cameras to spy on Rachel, that I had driven her into Mason's arms with my coldness. Too bad Sarah had already spoken to the church leadership and had a full presentation about Mason's scams, including how many of his victims were elderly church members. The intervention backfired spectacularly. Now they're basically social pariahs in their own congregation. And then the paternity results came back. Positive. The baby was mine. I was stunned. After everything, I didn't even know how to feel. Part of me wanted to scream. Part of me felt relief. Part of me just went numb. But if that child was mine, I wasn't going to let them grow up around that level of chaos. So I did what I had to. Filed for full custody. Documented everything. Rachel's misconduct, financial manipulation, emotional instability, Mason's criminal ties, the unsafe environment they were living in. The courts leaned in my favor. Rachel tried one last stunt. She and Mason came to my apartment together. They said they wanted to co-parent as a modern family, that we should put the past behind us. That family comes first. They filmed the conversation thinking they could twist it into something in court. What they didn't know, my security system records audio too. We got it all. Rachel admitting to account theft, Mason detailing previous scams, both of them joking about how easy it is to play the sympathy card. My lawyer's response: this is better than Christmas. Mason's legal troubles snowballed. The class action lawsuit grew. The FBI probe deepened. He's facing criminal charges in multiple states. He has no assets, no income, no reputation left. Rachel's teaching license is under review. She's drowning in legal fees. She's barely keeping it together. And my parents, they still tell people I'm ungrateful, that I turned my back on family. And maybe I did. But when that family is nothing but betrayal, lies, and rot, maybe walking away isn't abandonment. Maybe it's survival. I've got a new place now. Just me. Quiet. Clean. The baby is due soon. And if they're mine and I believe they are, I'll raise them to know love, trust, and boundaries. Not manipulation, not guilt, not toxicity, just a better life. A life I had to burn the old one to create.